We're back on another edition of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. My name is Jonathon Howe, and you're alongside a trip around the local Southern Ontario scene when it comes to dirt racing. And we'll take a look at some of the bigger stories out there as well on this show, which is brought to you by Van Sickle Pet Value and Lundy's Lane Pet Value. Don't forget that on Saturdays, well, pretty much anytime, you can get your tickets for Saturday night at either location alongside the best quality foods, pet toys, and accessories for your four-legged best friends or winged friends or, anything else. If it's a pet, they probably carry something for it. Appreciate all the folks at Van Sickle Pet Value and Lundy's Lane Pet Value for what they do and what they do for racing on Saturday nights at Merrittville Speedway. Beat the box office, grab your tickets ahead of time, and get right into the racing action Saturdays at Merrittville Speedway with our friends at Van Sickle Pet Value and Lundy's Lane Pet Value. All right, this is episode... I'm pretty sure I messed this up last week. I think I said last week it was episode 95. It was actually episode 94. It was the Todd Hoddick episode, if you will. And we've got 95 this week. I don't know why I'm having a blank on 95. Like the only 95 that's coming to mind in my eyes, like in my mind's eye of seeing race cars, is like the I guess Lightning McQueen car, for a lack of a better term. That's all I can think of, which somebody did have an enduro car. If anybody remembers, or maybe if the person who had this car raced a Lightning McQueen themed car in an enduro at Merrittville. I think it was at Merrittville. It might have been Humberstone, but I'm pretty sure it was at Merrittville. Please let me know who that was, because that was awesome. Somebody should do it again this year, especially if we have like 100 cars in the enduro at the end of the year. Race a Lightning McQueen car if you can. Why not? Like I said, this is 95. We're going to take a lap around the racing world and catch up on some of the results from the last week in the Southern Ontario Dirt Show race report, starting with action from Ransomville Speedway. Nigel Pentecoski clicks off another novice sportsman feature win ahead of Jocelyn Just and Kyle Teeter in that one. Again, lone Canadian in the field is Nigel, and he's really been on it over there in that class. And what do you know, our recent guest, Ryan Susi, back in victory lane in the Crown Undercoating Modifieds, winning it ahead of Noah Walker. Gary Lindbergh of Ridgeway finished third. Matt Williamson of St. Catharines finished fourth from the 8th starting spot. Nelson Mason started 7th, finished 7th. Another top 10 for Nelson as well. Those are the Canadians in the field in that one. And over in the Sterling Lubricant Sportsman, it was Brett Senek getting the better of St. Catharines native Cody McPherson, who came up from 9th place to finish 2nd. But Senek actually started 1 place behind him in 10th, both on the inside and outside of row number 5. And Senek was able to drive up and take the win in that one. Reminder, tonight at Ransomville Speedway, hopefully you're listening to this on the Friday, the Southern Ontario Sprints 360 Racing returns to Ransomville Speedway tonight alongside vintage cars, and the Street Stock Champion is going to be crowned tonight as well. Also coming up at Ransomville, should talk about the fact that the Ron Martin Summer Nationals coming to the Big R on August 20th. I plan to be in the attendance for that one. Can't wait for it. We'll detail that one a little bit later on in the show when we come to the Super Dirt Car Series talk of it all. Meanwhile, shifting gears over to Oshweek Speedway to talk about the Wing Warriors there. Sean Evans and Eric Gledhill started on the front row for the 360 sprint car feature, but it was, in fact, Dylan Westbrook coming away with a win yet again. Westbrook was once again lights out, running away from the race. The second position battle was between Mike Bowman and Nick Sheridan, and Bowman got the better of that, finishing ahead of Sheridan. Sean Evans finished 4th, and Gledhill was 5th in that one. Over in the Strickland's Crate Sprint cars, it was Brent Bigelow getting back into victory lane once again. Good battle shaping up between Bigelow and Stratford in that division at Weekly, and it was Bigelow getting the better of Stratford in this one. Jesse Costa brought it home in 3rd, Cameron Thomas 4th, and Larry Gledhill rounds out your top 5 in the crate sprints. Meanwhile, over in the Middleport Mechanical Thunder Stocks, Dave Bailey picks up the win ahead of Trevor DeBoer and Ryan Beagle. Adam Plazik finishes 4th, and Steve Shaw Sr. back at it out of Schweeken finishes in the top 5 in 5th. And over in the mini stocks, it was a Mustang night for John Lubeck, who gets the win ahead of Jillian Hills and Jason Tolton. Alex Riley started 18th, drove up to 4th, and Dusty DeBoer rounded out your top 5 after starting 10th and picking up 5 spots to break into the 5th spot. They also had the UMP Canadian Modified feature there as well. And Ken Schrader picks up yet another win in that class around Southern Ontario. Remember, he won earlier in the year at Merrittville Speedway and breaks through for a win here ahead of Greg Bellia. We had Sean McNally in 3rd, Mike Freeman and Dan Price rounding out your top 5 in the UMP versus Canadian Modifieds from Oswego. Reminder that with the SOS over the border at Ransomville, no 360s tonight at Oswego, but it is the Blast All Equipment Club 54 racing event. The Cash Blast 50 late model open versus and UMP versus Canadian Modifieds there again as well. So late models, UMP, Thunderstocks, mini stocks, all on the card from Oswego Speedway. Crate cars have the night off as well as the 360s. Of course, they're over the border. Down at Merrittville, missed this night. I was away at a family function, but Gary Lindbergh gets yet another win on Niagara Trailers night, family autograph night at that. Lindbergh won it over Luke Carlton, Brad Rouse, Freddie Carlton, and Pete Bicknell, your top 5 there. Over in the Seminex SO Baron Roofing Dirt Car Sportsman, Cody McPherson picks up yet another win. Started 15th, drove up through the field, won it ahead of Noah Mamo and Taylor Vanders, and into drivers that I've talked about on recent episodes as having really quiet, solid nights throughout the season here at Merrittville in the Sportsman division. And you never know if Cody finds himself in trouble. I think either of those drivers could be breaking through for a win, as could Adam Leslie. Tyler Pachalski rounds out your top 5 in the Sportsman there. Now moving down to the Hoosier stocks, it was Mark Fawcett picking up the win ahead of Dave Bailey, Kyle Pellrine, and Zach Bleach. Donnie Lampman finished the 28D in 5th after starting 5th. Moving over to the Rona Deutsch ModLites, RJ Pietz survives what was a chaotic feature, including a little chaos for him on the opening lap, getting himself tangled up in a multi-car incident. We'll talk to RJ about breaking through for his first win in, I believe, 4 seasons, as well as how he managed to battle back after being caught up in that early incident. Cohen Corbett drove from 12th to 2nd. Sean Iftati was 3rd. Anthony Kelly finished in 4th, and Jamie Gilbert rounded out your top 5. Trouble for some of the top runners in that one. Josh Slater and Brent Bigelow, both with DNFs on the night after being involved in incidents. Alex Riley picked up yet another win in the Vansicle Pet Value PV on the lane 4 cylinders ahead of Josh Dimitro, John Lubeck, Austin Worshow, and Sierra Cuse rounded out the top 5 after starting on the pole position. We'll be back at it from Merrittville this Saturday. Hopefully the weather plays along. Early forecasts in the week weren't looking great, but I think they're starting to turn around now. Hoping for the best and hoping we get some racing in at Merrittville on a Saturday night. Let's move over to the Super Dirt Car Series. Couple races to talk about over on the SuperDirtCarSeries.com website. We've got results for Summerfast from Land of Legends. We'll start with that one because Matt Williamson picks up the win there ahead of Alex Jankowski. Stuart Friesen on the podium in that one as well. Alex Payne, Matt Shepard round out the top 5 there. Chad Brockman went up for that one, started 23rd, ended up finishing 23rd, 1 lap down. Gary Lindbergh was also in this race, finished 1 lap down. After starting 3rd, finished in the 21st spot. Problems for him dropped him back towards the back of the field. Felix Wall also in this one, started 24th, ended up driving up to 20th, but still 1 lap down to the eventual race winner, Matt Williamson, in this one. Then the very next night at Fulton, it was Alex Jankowski breaking through and picking up the win after starting 7th ahead of Adam Pearson, Chris Heil, and Matt Shepard. Alex Payne finished in the 5th spot after starting 10th. Felix Waugh had a great run, started 5th, ended up finishing in the 6th spot. Matt Williamson started 12th, finished 12th in the 88 Buzz Shoe ride. Couple other notables to talk about. Eric Rudolph finished in the 16th spot after starting 11th in this one, and Stuart Friesen ended up 27 laps down. Was running at the end, but issues for Friesen in that race, as there was for Dalton Slack as well. Both of those drivers dropping way back from where they started and rounding out the field. Tough breaks for 2 Canadian favorites, we'll say, even though, again, Stuart Friesen doesn't put down that he's from Canada on his bio. But if you ever see him, just know, born in Canada, living in the New York State now. Super Dirt Car Series back in action, like it's previously mentioned, at the Summer Nationals happening August 20th from Ransomville Speedway. 75 laps, $7,500 to the winner with a rain date of August 21st, just in case. Make that a note on your calendars. All the details can be found either on the Super Dirt Car Series website or over on Ransomville's website as well about how to get tickets. Grandstand tickets start at $30. Seniors and students 12 to 17, those are 25, and kids 11 and under are free to this event. In the world of outlaws, of course, it was the Knoxville Nationals, and I'd love to say there's lots to talk about, but there really wasn't. I mean, it was a absolute blitzing of the field by Kyle Larson. It felt like at times he was just toying with them. Leads all 50 laps again for the second straight year in this particular race, picks up 190 grand, wins it ahead of Gio Selzy and Corey Day. Carson Macedo started fourth, finished fourth, and Anthony Macri ends up in fifth after starting in eighth. I picked Tyler Courtney as potentially one of the ones that could have upset Larson. He fell back to seventh after starting in the third spot. Gotta love what I saw from Corey Day, though. I mean, started 11th and drove up to third. Another impressive run for Corey Day. And some folks are suggesting that Kyle Larson needs to change his nickname to Mr. August when it comes to sprint car racing, as he is 6 for 6 this month. I saw a ridiculous stat on X. I believe it was in the last 4 years, I think going back to 2020. Kyle Larson's had 27 features that he's competed in the sprint cars in the month of August. He has won 17 of those. It is truly a blitzing in the month of August. He is definitely earning that nickname. Picked up yet another win last night in the Thursday night Thunder Bowl event from Tulare, California. Hopefully I'm saying that one correctly. He wins that one ahead of Rico Abreu and Brad Sweet. James McFadden and Cole Macedo round out your top five there in the high limit sprint cars. Brad Sweet still on top of the points ahead of Tyler Courtney and Brent Marks there. Should also mention that in the driver points for the World of Outlaws, David Gravel still healthily in front of Donnie Schatz, Carson Macedo, Gio Selzy, and Michael Kofoid. That is your top five there. And with that, I believe we are all caught up on all the racing action news and notes-worthy finishes to talk about. Larson, really impressive, man. I mean, I know he had that bold claim this week about being a better driver than Max Verstappen all around. And, you know, I don't try to get sucked into the comment section all that often when I'm on Twitter and I see crazy stats or crazy statements like that. But I mean, in this case, I don't think Larson is truly, truly wrong. Like if you had, I don't know, what decide what the major events are in terms of motorsport, right? Like you're going to have like a NASCAR race, you're going to have a sprint car race representing the dirt. You might maybe throw a midget race in there. Maybe you could throw a late model event in there instead of midgets. Your choice, dealer's choice for what you want to have from the dirt there. Standard sports car racing, IndyCar, and F1. How many of those does Max Verstappen really, truly beat Kyle Larson in? I'd say they're not 50-50, but I think it's only a slight margin in terms of sports cars. Like, don't forget that Kyle Larson literally won the Rolex 24 hours as well. The guy knows how to get around a road course in a sportsman or a sports car type event, man. Like I can't say for sure that Max Verstappen has a crazy edge on Larson in that one. I mean, yes, Max has been racing in F1 since he was like 16 or something ridiculous like that, 17, whatever it was. Obviously he's going to have the edge there on Larson's inexperience when it comes to an F1 car, but I don't think he'd be like out to lunch by any means. I mean, he had a test with McLaren. Even in an Indy car, like if you put the Indy cars on ovals, we saw that Larson was really competitive at Indy. Still had to learn how to, race in traffic and all that sort of stuff, but so would Verstappen. I can definitely see the argument, and I can see Larson's point in this, and it's not that I don't disagree with it because I really don't. There are other drivers. I think Shane Van Gisbergen's got to get a lot of love until he starts winning on ovals. We'll see. I don't think we can give like best driver status to Van Gisbergen, but in terms of a road car, like if there was going to be anybody from a different series that I would trust to maybe be able to beat Verstappen in a Formula One car, assuming they're in equal equipment. Maybe it's Van Gisbergen. Maybe it's Alex Palou too. Could shout out to him. But I mean, let's be real. Any of those F1 drivers, I think if they came over and raced anything on dirt, it would probably be pretty ugly, at least for the first couple features. I think we can all agree on that. And anybody who doesn't agree with it, you're probably not spending enough time watching dirt, which means why you listening to this podcast? Come on. Besides the Kyle Larson, Mr. August stuff, which is just insanely impressive, I did want to touch on one other kind of NASCAR detail because I think it has a crazy trickle down effect. I think ultimately NASCAR got it right in saying that Austin Dillon's win did not get him into the playoffs. If you missed this, Austin Dillon made a move on the last lap of the race recently at Richmond. He drove from multiple car lengths back. Some are saying as much as 5. I think that's a little bit dramatic. I think it was more like 2 or 3 car lengths back, but it was enough that he needed to basically use the 22 of Joey Logano to stop his race car and make the turn. And when he did that, he punted Joey Logano, spun him around. Didn't love that move, but we've seen crazier things happen in terms of dive bombs gone wrong. And we've seen Joey Logano take people out and spin them out for wins before. So not a bad deal there. But once that happened, Denny Hamlin was able to drive underneath Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon came down, turned to left, and right rear hooked Hamlin into the fence. And I just don't love that move. We've seen the right hook be suspended for Bubba Wallace, for Chase Elliott. I think, I get it's a short track. They're not going as fast, but that's still a dangerous move. I didn't love that. I know it's just like reaction. You're just trying to get to the line. So I think they gave Austin Dillon a pass of sorts by not suspending him, but definitely taking the win away in terms of making him eligible for the NASCAR playoffs. That was appropriate and set a standard. NASCAR got it right. And I'm glad they did this because if you let that particular move stand, I really think you're opening up Pandora's box in terms of what you're going to see going forward. We saw on the ZMAX Cars Tour, we saw that there was a win taken away recently for rough driving on the last lap. We've seen it at Merrittville. We've seen it at our local dirt tracks where passes are made throughout the field, and if they're deemed to be too rough, they cause a caution. Both the driver that caused the contact and the driver who was the victim usually end up going back towards the back of the field, and that's, I think, fair. It's so fair that I almost wouldn't hate that in NASCAR. Like, I don't mind a bump and run. I love a bump and run, actually. I love contact. I love full contact stock car racing, whether it's on the dirt, whether it's on pavement. Obviously, in the world of modifieds, in the world of sprint cars, in the world of midget cars, all the sort of stuff that we usually see on dirt, you can't really do full contact racing because as soon as those wheels touch, we know how bad and ugly that can get. So that almost is like a safety net for drivers, for the series itself. To you're never going to see that side by side contact on purpose, right? So but there are multiple other series. We've seen it in the mini stocks. They've got fenders. We've seen it in the Hoosier stocks or Thunder stocks or street stocks, whatever you want to call them. They've got fenders. They can bang. They can bounce off each other. I just feel as though if NASCAR lets this go and you're just going to see anybody feel as though they can send it and make moves that are too aggressive, I really think the ultimate play is if you make a move on somebody and they lose control of their car and spin out, you also have to go one position back behind them at probably the tail end of the lead lap. I think that's a fair ruling. I get that accidents happen and not every contact is on purpose, but you still have to have control of your race car. And I know, like, going back, that would alter the history of motorsports and all that sort of stuff. I get the ramifications of what I'm saying, but I don't see why that can't be enforced. I don't see why that has to be a thing. I've heard some people, when that's brought up this week, say like, oh, well, guys are just going to let their cars spin out so that the other guy doesn't go on to win or whatever. So what? People would rather, there's drivers out there that would rather lose control of their race car, risk damaging it, risk, having a bad points night because you finished 20th instead of maybe being able to hold on to the race car and finish in 3rd or 4th. You're going to spin out on purpose. Come on. That's not going to happen. Maybe it would, but I don't see it happening. I simply don't. So, good on NASCAR. A good way to avoid the trickle down effect to our local short tracks. by making sure that a move like that is penalized and say, hey, there's a line that was crossed, and that's fine. I like that. Super excited to get to the Big R on Tuesday. Looking forward to getting back to a big block event. I was not at the big block race for Ransomville last year. We'll be back this year. Looking forward to that. Especially because I didn't get up to any of the races in Canada, unfortunately for that. I mean, there is still time to get to Brockville. We'll see if I can make it up there, but looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting back to Merrittville. Again, hopeful that the weather plays along this Saturday and we can get some racing in. And I think it's a 4-division night. I think it's a school bus racing night. Let me double check what is happening for the King Paving and Construction event that I'll be back on the microphone for this week. Yes, it is. The the ModLites, are off this week, which is probably earned, honestly, after the chaos that was their race last week. Commercial Auto Electric 358s. We got the Sportsman. We got the Hoosier Stocks 4-cylinders, school bus racing, all happening this coming Saturday night at Merrittville Speedway. Make sure you grab your tickets from Vansicle Pet Value. And with the off week, I wanted to make sure that we grabbed somebody who has not been to Victory Lane in a little while with the Rona Dodge ModLites, but he has always been a steady contender. And when I read that it was 4 years since RJ Pietz' last win, I was pretty much not beside myself, but I was fairly shocked to say the least. I truly believe that this is one of the drivers that are in this division that have a lot of class, have a lot of patience, have definitely earned this win, and is always a constant threat for top threes, top fives. And I'm glad to chat with him now. Let's get to RJ Pietz on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. Folks from Vansicle Pet Value and PV on the Lane aren't just fans of your favorite four-legged friends, they are race fans too. That's why Jeff and Rhonda Riley, as well as their staff, have teamed up with Merrittville Speedway to make your race day experience more convenient. Race fans can now pick up tickets for race nights while grabbing the highest quality food, treats, toys, and accessories for their pets from the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls locations. Beat the box office and the crowds. Their support of local racing doesn't just stop with you, the race fan. Catch the Vansicle Pet Value PV on the Lane 4-cylinders racing at Merrittville Speedway throughout the 2024 season. Check out Vansicle Pet Value across from Best Buy and Walmart on 4th Avenue in St. Catharines, and PV on the Lane at the corner of Kayla Road and Lundy's Lane, Highway 20. All right, joining the Southern Ontario Dirt Show this week, coming off a big breakthrough win. It's RJ Pietz. How's it going, my friend?
Oh, not bad. Yourself, Jonathan?
Oh, not so bad. I'm glad to finally get you on here and catch up with you, because I think you're one of the few drivers we haven't really had on from Merrittville, but you've always been right there in the mix, especially in those ModLites. So it's going to be good to get the full story. Let's go back to this past weekend where you break through for a win. First since 2018. I have that right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because you're always so consistent, though. Like, you're always a threat for top fives. Every once in a while, you're up there battling and challenge for a win. So it's not like you're somebody who fell off the map by any means. I don't know how it feels. How has it felt the last couple of years for you? Has it felt like a struggle not winning?
No, it's been good. Knowing the level of competition I'm racing against, it's even for me, it still feels like a win to finish third behind, Josh and Brent and all those guys. So I can't really complain.
Yeah, and you mentioned Josh and Brent. Those two drivers have mostly dominated the ModLite class, and they again this year they've had a pretty good season. But it's a bit more balanced when we look at the point standings. A lot more drivers have been able to break through for wins, while Slider and Bagel only have 3 and 4 respectively between themselves. What have you made of the Rona Dodge ModLite division at Merrittville this year, and just the competition in general? It feels like it's more than just those two guys that can win on any given night now.
Oh yeah, I think definitely everyone's stepped their game up this year. Everyone's coming with good equipment, and everyone's just getting better and better every year, every race. The different track conditions we've had, one day it's pretty heavy and hammered down, and then the next week it's slick and a driver's track. So, it really levels out the playing field.
Yeah, it really has been a level playing field, like you say, and it's been really fun to watch as a somebody who gets commentate on the races, and just even from a fan perspective. A lot of people I've talked to the ModLite division is creeping up their ranking in terms of some of the favorite races and some of the best races that we've seen on the year so far this year. I want to go back to Saturday night because it didn't necessarily start well for you. You got involved in that early incident that sent, I think it was Cornish for a flip, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was a little hairy going down the back straightaway there on the first lap, and kind of got tangled up and spun around, and you know, luckily everyone was okay, but lots of carnage.
What are you thinking at that point when you're spinning sideways? You're not even through a full lap around the racetrack really yet, and you're already pointing the wrong way. How are you feeling about trying to make a comeback at that point?
You feel like you're behind the eight ball for sure, but I was just glad that the car was in one piece, and I could keep going, and just had to battle my way back through.
And you mentioned battling your way back through. It was kind of a night where there's a lot of different names at the front. Some of the favorites getting caught up. I know Josh had his issues. Brent was obviously involved in that accident, amongst other issues. So, you know, when you go ahead and get down to the closing laps of that race, uh, how are you approaching it? Are you in attack mode? Are you trying to be conservative? Did it feel like a race that you really had a good shot to win when it was getting down to the end there?
Definitely at the end, I definitely thought I had a good chance of winning. I was definitely on full attack mode. I really needed to get one to boost the confidence from this year. It's been a pretty tough year. Lots of wrecks. I had my own flip at the beginning of the year, and that was a pretty big shot to the confidence. So I knew I just had to go as hard as I could, try to get that win.
Well, it's been a bounce back since that flip, though, for you, because I'm looking at your stats, not doing too bad. 13 features. You got 10 top 10s and 8 top 5s in that. Again, you're one of those really consistent drivers. You're third, it looks like, in terms of top 5 finishes behind Brent and Josh Slider. So, where is the confidence level at now in terms of you got this one under your belt? Do you almost wish that maybe this was maybe week 3 and you had a chance to really get in that championship fight in this division?
Absolutely. I would have been way better to get this win at the beginning of the year to boost the confidence, but hey, we got to take what we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your racing background because you do kind of come by it in a family sense, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, so Josh is my cousin, so that's kind of how I got into it. But way back when, my dad used to pit for Rob Lettingham way back in the day, so I kind of saw racing for the first time with them, and then yeah, I was crewing for Josh for a while, and then car opened up and they told me get in and drive it, see what you can do, and I've been here ever since.
So what was those first couple laps like for you? Did you take to the ModLite car pretty quickly? And was that the first race car that you really had a chance to drive?
So yeah, that was the first thing I've ever raced, and yeah, not gonna lie, I had no seat time at all. I went out for the first heat race ever, and I almost didn't make it on the track because I stalled the car on the ramp like 5 or 6 times. But yeah, it was definitely a neat experience going out there for the first time. Realizing how fast these cars actually are. You know, they are a full blown race car. So
Yeah, it doesn't always feel like that. It almost feels like they almost get overlooked and they're like, oh, what are these small things? They got bike engines, but behind the wheel, there's still a really good sensation of speed, right?
oh, absolutely. Like even our lap times, most of the time the top five are competing with the same times as the sportsman cars. So they definitely got their speed.
And what does it feel like to flip one of those things? Because I know you unfortunately have some experience in that. And I feel like of all the cars to get airborne, the mod lights I think are maybe the most prone to it just because of their size and they do have the open wheels like the modifieds might.
Absolutely, it is. It's definitely a ride you can't buy. That's for sure. Uh, it's a The first one was a little scary, but it's kind of bad to say. I'm kind of used to it now.
I mean, nobody wants to be used to flipping, but I guess if anything, that means you can, I guess, when you find yourself in that unfortunate situation, you can kind of trust the fact the car is built safe, and you're gonna know that you're going to be all right when it's done, and hopefully landing on all fours at the least.
Absolutely.
So, talk to us about crewing for Josh, and what you learned about the race cars doing that, because obviously Josh Slater, the whole Savage Race Chassis bunch, you guys all have really built this ModLite program up, really from the ground up. It feels like, and now there's so many of those Savage Race Chassis out there, and they're all very competitive.
Absolutely. Yeah, it all started with just, you know, going to the pits and helping out any way can, torquing tires and doing air pressures and scraping mud to, you know, go to the shop and grind tires and change motors. And it got pretty full involved. And yeah, now we're into building our own cars and all that stuff. So it's definitely taken me down a neat path.
With the building of your own race cars too, I kind of wondered how much in terms of setup are you guys sharing between drivers and between cars? Like, um, is it all really customized to each of you guys as you're driving, or are you guys kind of sharing information, being like, okay, this is what Josh does, or this is what Brent does. Let's try this, and then adjust it out from there. How much adjustability, I guess, are in those mod lights?
Oh, quite a bit. We all kind of run our own little setups. Like we've created a baseline setup for the Savage Race cars, but we all kind of tweak and change things to however our driving styles are, who likes what, and stuff like that. But there's definitely a lot of adjustment in the cars.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. That there's just so much to love about this class, and it's the one that I'm getting a bit more and more passionate about in terms of my love of watching it. Obviously, the parity in the division this year has really made a huge difference in terms of making it that much more entertaining. Um, I wanted to ask too about this class and the young talent that's kind of started to crop up. Cohen Corbett, Ryan Anderson breaking through for victories. Um, are you guys how are you guys feeling about this new class of driver that's starting to mix and mingle with you guys, especially at the front of the field?
It's great. The more people we can have chances of winning is just better for the class in its entirety. Like it shows that, you know, anyone can come out and win. It's not about, you know, what you have or whatever. It's not about money. It's all very competitive. You know, it's an affordable class and everyone can come out and get a win. It's more about driving than it is about spending money.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we've talked about your consistency in the season. That's got you up to fourth in points. Again, Josh and Brent kind of clearing the field by a bit of a large margin now in terms of the points at Merrittville. But it's not. You're pretty much closing in within striking distance of Ryan Anderson, for example. What's your goals for the rest of this year? Are you just focused on getting the best finishes you can, or do you approach it to do maybe some point racing and try to get up in that third spot?
Well, it's a little bit of both, I would say. Like if there's an opportunity to, you know, go for it, I'll be there because everyone wants to win. But I got to look at it the smart way too, and try to play a little bit of points. But it's kind of just depends on how the night's going. You know, if the chance is there to strike, I'm gonna take it. But if it's not, it'll be wherever the best finish I can get.
So when you are driving and the car is feeling right, what does a well set up and a well driving mod light feel like? What are you looking for in a race car setup or in terms of feel to know that, all right, I got a piece under me tonight, I can go out there and compete?
Just it's got to have good handling, which means like lots of side bite, especially on a slick track, because most of the nights so far have been a little bit slick. So good side bite, lots of drive out of the corner. You know, good good handling as steering. Point and shoot. It goes where I want it to. I don't have to fight the car. You know, just kind of things like that.
Nice. All right, we'll get you out of here on one more, and this is kind of the question we ask everybody, and I'm glad that I had you on for the first time here to finally get to ask you this. But obviously, ModLite was your first car you got to drive. It's the piece that you're running now. It's the piece you most recently won in. But if you could race any kind of race car on any track, hypothetically, it doesn't have to be something that you can afford to get into. It doesn't mean that it's got to be anything like that's within your wheelhouse of actually driving. Just one race car, one racetrack to drive at one more time in your life. What would be the pick of the combination of car and track?
Who? I don't know. If it was a dirt car, I think I'd love to run a big block modified. But if for whatever reason I went pavement racing, I'd love to drive an F1 car.
Nice. Do you have a particular track in mind for either of those seats?
Big block modified, I'd love to drive one at Charlotte.
Ooh,
I think that'd be fun.
Nice. I like that pick.
And then I think for the F1, I'd love to keep it home here and do the Montreal Grand Prix.
The Montreal circuit is one of the better ones on the calendar. I think it's probably one of the more fun tracks to drive, at least in terms of like my sim experience and playing it on PlayStation or whatever. And I guess same for the big blocks on Charlotte as well. I've played that in the World of Outlaws games, and that's pretty fun as well, I would say. Good picks. I like those.
Thank you.
Well, RJ, I appreciate you taking some time out to join the show this week and talking to us a little bit about the win, talking a little bit about your journey to getting back to Victory Lane. I wish you luck the rest of the way, and hopefully that's not the only time that you're in Victory Lane and we can chat down on the front stretch sometime in the future, buddy.
Absolutely. No, it was a pleasure to be on the show.
There he is, RJ Pietz on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. And the checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Van Sickle Pet Value and Lundy's Lane Pet Value. Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us at southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.